Kasya ang isang oras, ang Power and Play 2 oras na. Alamin ang mga maiinit na balita sa mundo ng palakasan. Power and Play, kasama niyo ako, Noli Iyala, tuwing Sabado mula alas 8 hanggang alas 10 ng umaga sa Radyo 5 92.3 True FM. Dito tayo sa totoo.
25,000 watts ng totoong tunog ng FM radio.
Totoong pinalakas, totoong pinagtibay ng mga batikang mamamahayag sa paghahatid ng news,
Public service,
entertainment,
music,
information at inspiration para sa bawat kapatid, bawat Pilipino. Ito ang 92.3 Radyo 5 True FM. Dito tayo sa totoo.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Mainit at makabuluhang talakayan tungkol sa sports, kumpleto yan dito sa Power and Play. Mula sa mga paborito at naglalakihang atleta hanggang sa mga natatanging Pinoy sports figures na dapat niyong makilala. Ihahatid yan dito sa Power and Play.
Sa kapwa ko Pilipino, ipagmalaki ang galing na meron tayo. Ilantad ang likas nating talento at magdala ng saya sa mundo. Sa harap ng pagsubok ay di susuko, para sa pangarap tayo'y porsigido. Magpakitang gilas na at huwag magpatalo, ipagdiwang natin ang Pilipino. Yan ang Pinoy. Mula noon at hanggang ngayon, talento natin ang bida. Mula sa simpleng bakuran hanggang entablado natin ipakita. May pagsubok man ng Pinoy, pinalalakas ng saya. San man tayo sa pulot, sumbe, sibay, lakay, amiga. Sama-samang pakita ang galing natin katropa sa kapwa ko Pilipino. Pilipino, yan ang Pinoy.
Patapos na po ang FIBA Basketball World Cup at ang buong bayan namangha sa kanilang naranasan at nakitang galing sa paglalaro ng basketball. Ang tanong, natuto kaya ang mga Pilipino? Well, pag-usapan po natin yan ngayong umaga. Di paano? Bango na! Power and Play na! Power and Play with Noli Iyala. Isa pong magandang umaga. Napakaganda nga naman ang umaga ngayon. Hindi na po nag-uulan at talaga pong lumabas na ang haring araw at kami po ay natutubang makasama kayong lahat. Ito po ang Power and Play, hatid sa inyo ng Cherry Loom, ang yerong may aluminum. Cherry Tigo, it's fun to drive. Chooks to go, nag-iisang manok ng bayan. True religion, where passion meets power, and we are powered by smart. Live more today. At kami po ay bumabate sa lahat ng ating mga suki at masugid na taga-subaybay at tagapakinig po ng Power and Play, lalong-lalo na sa Radyo 5 92.3 True FM. Dito na tayo sa totoo, sa 1PH on Signal TV at lahat po na nakatutok sa atin worldwide sa pamamagitan po ng Facebook Live ng Power and Play, Radyo 5 at ng 1PH. Nako, patapos na po. Makaraan ang 2 linggo ng world-class basketball. Magwawakas na po ang FIBA Basketball World Cup. 6 na taon nating pinaghandaan at hinintay. At kagabi, nalaman na po natin ang maglalaban sa gold medal match. Ito po ay mga kuponang hindi natin siguro inaasahan. Germany at Serbia ang maglalaban po sa finals bukas ng FIBA Basketball World Cup matapos na patumbahin nila ang Team USA at ang Team Canada. Parehong punong-puno ng mga NBA stars. At talaga naman pong ipinakita ng FIBA Basketball World Cup kung anong klase ng paglalaro ang talagang kailangan para makapasok po at makatungtong sa pinakamataas na level ng basketball sa buong mundo. At tayo po'y talagang natuwa sa laro kagabi. Ito po ang laban ng Germany at ng Serbia ay siguradong magbibigay sa atin ng kauna-unahang kampyon. First-time champion. Dahil ang Germany po, ito kanilang first World Cup Finals. Samantalang ang Serbia, hindi pa nananalo ng titulo na bilang Serbia. Ha? Yung pong kuponan nila as a country as Serbia. Sila po ay kasama ng Yugoslavia, I believe, nung panahon na yon. Kaya po hindi pa sila nanalo as a country ng Serbia. Kaya napakaganda po na magiging tampok. Of course, maraming na-disappoint. Sabi nga nung post ng FIBA Basketball World Cup, hiningi nyo yung USA versus Canada, natupad naman. Yun lang nga sa bronze medal. Kaya po abangan natin bukas at mamaya po hihimayin pa natin yung finals na yan. Ang isa pa po of course na nangyari dito sa FIBA World Cup ay ang pagtatapos ng kampanya ng Gilas Pilipinas. Kung saan, again, tayo po'y nagkulang. At inamin naman ito ng ating dating head coach na nagbitiw, si Coach Chot Reyes. Pero hindi pa po nagtatapos dyan ang basketball sapagkat sa susunod na mga linggo ay maglalaro na po at magsisimula ang Asian Games kung saan lalahok din ang Pilipinas sa basketball. Kaya po ang tanong, tayo ba'y natuto sa nangyari sa World Cup? Sa ating pong paghahanda patuloy sa Asian Games. At dahil po dyan, tayo magkakaroon ng post-mortem na evaluation. Ito po ay paghimay na naging kampanya ng Gilas ngayong araw pong ito. Lots of unpacking to do, ika nga. At ang ating makakausap mismo ang former head coach ng Gilas Pilipinas, head coach dito sa World Cup, si Coach Chot Reyes. Mamaya po yan right after this. And then mamaya po isang preview ng plano ng ngayon ay bagong hirang na head coach ng Gilas para sa Asian Games sa Hangzhou, China. Na magsisimula po sa September 23. Si Coach Tim Cone will be with us as well. And then finally, at the second hour, isa pong malaking karangalan na ating makakausap, isa sa pinakarespetadong sports writers ng Amerika. Siya po isang host at isang podcaster. ESPN's Brian Windhurst will be with us. Siya po ay host ng podcast na Hoop Collective. Siya po ay ating makakausap mamaya sa ating ikalawang oras. Mamaya po abangan nyo yan para himayin natin ang mga kaganapan dito sa FIBA Basketball World Cup. Samantala, of course, araw-araw o linggo-linggo ating pong pinupulsuhan kayo, ating pong mga tagapakinig at tagapanood. Ngayong araw pong ito, ang ating pulso ng bayan, hatid sa inyo ng M2T Drinks with malunggay, luya, and okra. Drink your gulay with M2T Drinks. Ito po ang ating pupulsuhan mga kapatid. Patungkol pa rin po sa hahanda natin patungo sa Asian Games. Last week, nagbitiw na nga si Coach Chot Reyes at hinirang si Coach Tim Cone bilang interim head coach ng Gilas for the Asian Games. So ang tanong, anong opinion nyo sa pagtalaga kay Tim Cone bilang bagong Gilas Pilipinas coach para sa Asian Games? Ulitin ko po yan ha. Ano po ang opinion nyo sa pagtalaga kay Tim Cone bilang new Gilas coach for the Asiad? Ito pong Pulso ng Bayan ay hatid sa inyo ng M2T Drink. Drink your gulay and fuel up on energy with M2T Drink with malunggay, okra, and luya, your natural source of electrolytes. Kami po ay magbibigay ng mga M2T drinks sa mga mapipili naming nagbigay ng opinion tungkol po sa ating Pulso ng Bayan. Alright mga kapatid, bago natin ihatid ang ating unang bisita, syempre, patuloy po ang pamimigay ng Power and Play ng mga premyo dito po sa ating show tuwing Sabado. And of course, yung Joyride Top-Up Promo tuloy-tuloy po. Napakadali para manalo po ng 1,000 pesos e-wallet credits. Mag-download lamang ng latest version ng Joyride Super App. kuhanan ng screenshot at ipadala sa Power and Play kasama po ng inyong pangalan at registered mobile number at kami po ipipili ng 5 mananalo ng 1,000 pesos JR Pay wallet credits para magamit nyo sa MC Taxi, sa Joyride Delivery, sa MC or sa Joyride Taxi Cab at yung aming pong iba pang yung aming Joyride Car, yung TNVS service ng Joyride Super App. Alright, hindi lamang po e-wallet credits ang ipinamimigay ng Joyride. Namimigay din po tayo ng Joyride Limited Edition Aqua Flask. Mga kapatid, napakadali lamang para manalo ng Joyride. Nako, ngayon mainit, umiinit na naman. Maayos po to para sa inyo. Joyride Limited Edition Aqua Flask. Simple-simple, i-download ang Joyride app. Mag-book po kayo ng MC Taxi or Joyride Car. Kuhanan nyo po ng isang creative shot yung inyong trip kasama po ng driver at ipadala po sa aming Power and Play Facebook page at kami po ipipili ng mananalo pero ang mahalaga po dito, isama nyo itong hashtag of the week. Ito papalabas natin. Ang ating pong hashtag of the week, hashtag safe ka sa Joyride. Ulitin ko po yan hashtag safe ka sa Joyride. Ipadala nyo po yung creative picture kasama niyang hashtag na yan at you have a chance to win a limited edition Joyride Aqua Flask. Alright, we are ready to roll ngayong Sabado ng umaga. Ibahin natin ngayon dahil ang dami natin pag-uusapan. Ating pong nakapanayam ang dating head coach ng Gilas Pilipinas just a few nights ago after he stepped down as the head coach ng national team. At ito po ang ating interview with Coach Chot Reyes. And of course, kasama na po natin ngayon, walang iba kundi ang Gilas, former Gilas head coach. Sasabihin ko sana Gilas head coach because that's how I know Coach Chot Reyes. Chot, thank you so much for joining us. It's I know it's been a whirlwind of a World Cup, but thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Molly.
Alam mo, I want to go straight to the point. There's a lot of things to unpack here after what has transpired in this last week and a half. Of course, hindi pa nakakaisang linggo yung decision mong bumaba mula sa pwesto bilang head coach ng Gilas Pilipinas. But I don't want to start there. I want to start on the positive note, no? And that positive note obviously is your victory against China. You know, in that particular game, everything just came together, no? Yung 2-point shooting natin, 62%. Yung ating assists, 18 assists in that game. You had about 46 to 31 advantage on rebounds, and your turnovers were down to just 9. Chot, when you look at that game, and of course the way Jordan Clarkson played, ito ba yung laro na you were envisioning na mangyayari in the games prior to China?
Yeah, mismo. When we put the team together, this was the team that we had in mind. The team where Kai is playing very well inside, outside. Jordan Clarkson is clicking on all cylinders, making his 3-point shots, and then the offense is going on smoothly. Although we know that we're not going to out-rebound the European and the African teams, we knew we're going to have problems with offensively, but in a very real sense, yes. Nung unang-una kaming umupo with the coaching staff, this was the team that we had envisioned very early in May, right after we won the Southeast Asian Games gold in Cambodia. Ito na yung team na nasa isip namin.
Well, rebounding was not a problem for you. Surprisingly, sa World Cup, the Philippines ended 7th in rebounding, tied with Spain. So, you know, hindi tayo nagpapatalo ika doon sa departamentong yon. But again, you know, you mentioned this na ito yung sana inaasahan natin laro. Ano nangyari? Bakit hindi natin nagawa ito, I guess, in the first 4 games?
Remember, one of my last interviews was with you, right? When you asked me about the preparation, ilang percent na tayo, you said we had a Gantt chart. And I said, napalitan na yan, Gantt chart na yan, ng roller coaster na because of everything that happened. I guess the best way to characterize it's that life happened. Life happened. And gano'n ang buhay natin ngayon, di ba? It's really full of disruption. full of uncertainty and unpredictability. And while we had a very precise program, schedule, we wanted everyone in by July 25. Yun na, unti-unti, we find out Clarkson can only come in on August 8. And then dapat si Kai tapos na yung NBA Summer League ng August 17, and he came in but he couldn't ng July 17, but he couldn't come in because he had his back problems, and then of course the fracture yung kamay ni Scotty. So all of those things happened, and then in the midst of all that, on July 25 mismo, na-injured din si Justin Brownlee. So, that's doon na yung nagpatong-patong. That's where now everything started to go south on us. So much so that we had our first full team practice for the World Cup on June 12, araw ng kalayaan natin. But nakumpleto tayo na lahat, all 12 players, fully in practice, uniform, healthy, full practice only on August 18 nung kinalaban na natin yung Cote d'Ivoire. Because August 17, the day the practice before that, hindi pa nakapractice si Kai because he had to undergo treatment for his lower back. So that's what happened. Again,
I'll take that up later, no? But I want to ask you kasi sabi mo nga, one of the last few interviews that you gave on the show was on this show just before the World Cup. And one of the things you said is that I tinanong kita, what would make it a successful campaign for you? And you said advancing to the second round. And obviously, we did not get to that point. Plus, of course, yung Olympic slot. So would you consider this campaign as a failure? Just...
Yes, that is precisely why I stepped aside. Because I was given a mandate for a certain result, and that is to qualify to go to the Olympics. And we did not achieve that result. And as the leader, regardless of whatever the mitigating circumstances are, whatever the reasons are, in the end, the leader has to hold himself accountable. That's my belief in my leadership workshops. That's what I preach. That's what I talk to different leaders about. And, I have to be the prime example of that. I was hired to do a job. And sure, we performed better than 2014 and 2019. Sure, we got that one victory and all that. But in the end, we did not deliver on the result that we were hired to do. And as a leader, I have to take full accountability.
I want to ask you now about yung mga binabanggit mo kanina. And of course, these are the things na binabato ng mga tao, ng mga netizens na minsan hindi na reasonable. Let's begin with the when yung sinasabi mo ngang parang hindi nagkatugma-tugma yung schedule. Nagkaroon ng pagkukulang in terms of preparation time. At nabuo lang yung full practice ninyo about a week before the start of the World Cup. But some people are saying, you said na originally the criteria was availability. No, talagang dapat maging available sila at a particular time. Bakit mo inabandon yung philosophy mo yon at inintay mo lahat wag natin sabihin lahat, yung tatlo, Kai, Jordan Clarkson, and Scotty Thompson?
Wala tayong choice kay Jordan because nga na-injure si Justin.
Okay.
So
That's
to those who are saying that, would have they rather na pumasok tayo doon na wala si Clarkson? If I stuck to that first issue on availability, wala na si Justin Brownlee at ipagpipilitan natin yung availability, lalaban tayo sa World Cup nang wala si Clarkson. I think that would be a worse scenario. Number two on Kai, in the end, remember we also had Poy Eram. Na pagbalik natin from Estonia, Poy Eram had to undergo a major knee surgery. So that obviated another big man. We did not want to go into the World Cup with only three bigs. Junmar, Japet, and AJ Edu only. Kasi yung isa pa nating big, si Poy, nawala na rin. And then we also wanted we had wanted to invite we also invited Carl Tamayo, but he begged off. So naubos tayo ng bigs eh. So it was really question of necessity more than anything. Si Scotty was different issue altogether because Scotty naman was with us from the start eh. He was
Right.
with us all the way through sa Estonia. He was always with us. Na-injure lang siya, but nakabalik siya. But he's always been with us. He knows everything that we're doing. He was in every practice. So for us, that was a non-factor. For us, Scotty was available.
All right. Another issue that has been, mentioned is itong statistics natin. No? And when you look at the statistics, we were last in assists. We were last in assists to turnover ratio. And we were tied with sixth in terms of turnovers. No? And ang sinasabi nila dito is, wala tayong legitimate point guard. Do you agree? Do you agree that this was something that we could have used, or it was really not the way it was supposed to come together?
No, the issue was not the lack of a legitimate point guard. The issue was lack of time together. Yun talaga yun. Because hindi talaga 1 week.
Nagkakaamo yan.
Yeah, basically 2 weeks with Jordan. Yun talaga yung pinoproblema namin from the start. We knew we would struggle there. We knew we would have issues there. And that's why may mga iba kaming ginawang paraan to be able to mitigate that because we knew we're going to have offensive problems, execution, and flow problems in the offense because nga of that lack. That's why, in spite of that, like you said, tama ka, kulela tayo sa assist turnover ratio, turnovers, pero lumaban tayo sa lahat ng game. In every game, we were right there. We gave our chance to win. We gave ourselves a chance to win. So, can you imagine if we had at least 1, maybe 2 more weeks with Jordan Clarkson, it would have
Exactly.
been a really big difference.
Exactly. And I think yun ang parang nakakahinayang, All right. Let me ask you about another thing, we've seen in this World Cup teams just showing their identity, Nakita natin for instance ang Latvia. Wala silang ginawa kundi tumira na lang ng tumira sa labas, in the same manner, you see Slovenia. You see a team like South Sudan, for instance, that has shown its identity not only as a team but as a country after what they have been through. One of the things na naririnig ko is also kulang tayo ng ano ba klaseng team, lalong-lalo na pagdating sa offense, lack of shooters. Sabi nila, we were again one of the lowest in three-point shooting and on offense, do you also agree that walang identity yung team, hindi nabuo yung identity, Coach Shot?
If you take a look at ours, and we talked about that in our interview, in the China tune-up series, ang ganda na ng flow ng offense, di ba? Things were going very well, ang ganda ng takbo ng offensa, things were running smoothly. We lost that. And again, we have to go back because we had our top scorer, our best player coming in. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not blaming Jordan by any stretch. I mean, wala ako masabi kay Clarkson. He really did everything we asked of him. It's just physically hirap lang talaga with that kind of competition. To be able to cope with that kind of competition, with that kind of defense. Yung Slovenia nga, Luka Doncic na di ba? Nung nag-focus na yung Canada sa depensa nila kay Luka, putting Dylan Brooks or Nikhil Walker and then sending a second man in. Hindi na rin nila na-solve, di ba? So, that's really how difficult and how tough the competition is. Kasi, nakita mo naman how teams defended JC, di ba? So, that was really the problem. And, after game 1, we saw that already and we were trying to provide solutions for it next day sa practice before the second game. But remember, we played the game at natapos yung game 10 ng gabi. So the next day sa practice, syempre pagod na si Jordan because he played almost the whole game. We really couldn't push him anymore too much in the practice the next day to get ready. So yun ang nangyari, nagpatong-patong na, and still with all of that,
We were
if he did not foul out in the Dominican game, baka iba yung
may
story.
laban.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
if we won the Dominican game, maybe the whole narrative would be different.
I want to ask you about that, Coach. Alam ko na dahil nga host tayo, we had some privileges, and of course, one of them was to be able to put ourselves in a particular draw. But in terms of the scheduling, although alam natin yan, binubola ng FIBA yan at ginagawa ng FIBA yung scheduling. But as a host, I've been there, you also can have a little bit of a persuasion kung sino yung una mo makakalaban. On hindsight, do you still agree that Dominican should have been the first game that we played and not Angola na probably, at that point, hindi tayo kilala and maybe makasigurado natin yung panalo?
How I wish we played Angola. You're right. We were really praying. But nung lumabas na yung draw, lumabas na yung schedule, and we asked, is that the schedule already? Sinabihan kami, yeah, that's the schedule. Hindi lang yung privileges as host, Com. Pati home court advantage, wala tayo. We never got to practice at Araneta. We never got to practice at Phil Sports Arena. Yeah, at the Philippines Arena. Yeah. Kasi wala yung court. The court was physically not there. FIBA brought in their own court and their own baskets, and it was physically not set up until 2 days before. So we practiced in that stadium in Araneta and in Philippine Arena just the same as everyone else. Wala talaga tayong home court advantage. Sa referees na lang, nakikita mo naman sa referees, wala tayong home court advantage. And I'm not the only one complaining about the referees. Even Luca last night, even the coach ng Italy na thrown out nga, di ba? Even the coach of Angola. Ang dami nagrereklamo sa officiating. And I think we really got, hopefully, kung gumanda-ganda yung tawag nung game 1, sana nag-iba yung narrative.
Well, yun nga ang nakakahinayang sapagkat tayo ay nasa ating sariling bansa. It's sad to hear that even that ay pinagkait sa atin. Coach, let me ask you about this. No? When we look at the numbers, Scotty, for instance, played below par. Let's put it that way. Japet the same way, CJ Perez the same way, and even si Jamie Malonzo. Players na napakaganda ng ipinakita during your European tour, during your China tour. And on the other hand, yung mga overseas players mo, at the end of the day, you relied upon. Even in that big run against South Sudan, you relied on your overseas players, Ramos, Edus, Soto, and Abando. Do you think that there is this is an issue of style of play that takes getting used to, or ano ang nakikita mong rason kung bakit medyo mas mababa ang kanilang paglalaro?
No, I don't think there is any issue on the style of play. It's just a matter of players who were able to come up and play at their best level. I agree that Scotty, we could have gotten more out of Scotty, but remember, he played really well when we played him in Dominican Republic, that first game. CJ, really, mahihirapan talaga si CJ with very limited playing time. And the problem with that is in that position, Jordan Clarkson is there, ang gandang linaro ni Abando. But I thought Roger Pugoy played really well. I thought Junmar played really well. So there were players who were not from the overseas who played really well. So it's not, I don't think it's a style of play. It's just at that very particular point, couple of issues. Number one, a couple of reasons. Number one is that the playing time, their playing time was really usurped by Jordan Clarkson. And then with Malonzo in particular, with Jamie, Dwight was just playing at such a high level. The two positions where we could play Jamie was in Dwight and AJ's positions. And those were the two guys who were playing their best. So, hindi talaga mahirap di ba? And like people are saying in game 1 sa Dominican, dapat daw naglaro ng mas matagal si Kai. So, my answer is, so sinong iuupo ko? Si AJ or si Junmar? Ang gandang laro ng mo, di ba? So, that's the issue. So, should I sit AJ or Junmar or Dwight? You know, for those are the issues around.
All right. Well, alam mo, talking about issues and all of the things that have been discussed, no. Again, you have mentioned this. Part of the reason for stepping down is yung the toll on your family, on your health, as well as on everything that has come around in this particular stint, no. Sabi nga ng iba, brutal, grabe ang words na narinig ko. At least from those that have been on your side, no, Coach Shot. But again, I want to ask this very plainly. Considering, sabi nga natin, we're playing in our home country, considering the number of years that we've had, that we were supposed to prepare. In fact, you had a 23 for 23 program back in 2017. And I guess everything else, all the factors, do you think justified yung galit? Wag na yung pagkabrutal. Alam ko, hindi yan justified. Pero yung pagkagalit o yung disappointment ng fans, Coach Sean?
I think the disappointment is justified. Certainly, because we're passionate about our sport. We love our national team. Of course, we love to win. So the disappointment, the galit, I don't really know. And I think the galit was fanned by a few quarters, a few outlets, or a few people who really took advantage of it, kaya nag-expand. And the reason I know that is because now, grabe nakukuha kong thank you, appreciation, positive notes, and anywhere I go, people are very appreciative about it. So, I think the disappointment certainly is justified, and there's no person more disappointed than myself, because we did not perform and we did not deliver on the results. So the brutality, like you said, there's no place for that and all that. And but again, the reason why I stepped aside is yes, may factor yung social media angle na yun. But really, the two main issues are, number one, because I did not deliver on the result, and because number two, because of everything that was going on, magiging distraction lang. It's just going to start affecting the players. If I stay on, di ba? And palagi ko sinasabi yun when I give my workshops, part of knowing when to get into business is also knowing when to get out of business.
Correct.
Dito, diba? So, part of knowing is knowing also when to get out. And I think that the time is now.
Well, alam mo, you've said kung ang mga rason mo for stepping down, no? But I want to ask you, ano ang pinakamahirap doon sa decision mo? Kasi yun ang madaling part eh. It's easy to make that decision dahil nga marami nasaktan ng mga taong mahal mo, no? Pero ano yung mahirap na part doon sa decision na ginawa mo?
It's really for me the pinaka-importante sa akin in this entire exercise is the relationship with my players. So sa akin yun ang pinakamahirap, like yung hindi na ikaw coach, I won't mention who that player is, and several players as well who are saying that they really look forward to us going to fight for the gold in the Asian Games. So sa akin yun ang pinakamahirap, losing that opportunity to hopefully make amends. Sana kung ano man yung nangyari sa World Cup, may opportunity kami bumawi sa Asian Games. Justin Brownlee's coming in with all the players available. I think there's a really good opportunity. I think Tim has a good opportunity now to really do something in the Asian Games. So sa akin yun ang mahirap, just missing out on those the relationships.
All right, nabanggit mo na si Coach Tim Con, and as we know, he has been appointed as the coach for the Asian Games. Unang-una, ang tanong is, did you play any part in that decision? Kinausap ka ba ni Tim with respect to that?
Yeah, he asked me, we talked about it. I was the number one person who was really convincing him to take the job, and telling everybody, even in the SBP, the PBA, that the best man for the job really is Tim. So I'm very, very glad that Tim has relented, changed his mind, and accepted it, because now I think now we've put ourselves in a good position to really do well in the Asian Games.
Well, nabanggit mo na nga that you think that there is really a great opportunity here. But when you look at your experience in the World Cup and the team that we put together, of course, that was perhaps one of the best, no? What may be the pitfalls that you experienced in the World Cup na sa tingin mo dapat pwede nating iwasan dito sa Asian Games, Coach?
I think yun, they set a date, team has to set a date, you have to be here by this date, and if you're not here, you're not going to make the team. I think that's, if he has that luxury, I think that's going to be very important, because I agree with you. We had the best talent. We had I think the most talented players in this team for the World Cup. But coming into the World Cup, we were not yet a team. Hindi pa
Correct.
team. So, but then habang tumatagal, nakikita mo, and then the way we played against China, that's like we said earlier at the start of this interview, that was the team that we had envisioned, that we had in mind.
Actually, parang ang feeling ko nga kinulang lang ng oras Kumbaga, kung nakapaglaro pa yung first 4 games natin tune up, yung laro natin sa China, yung first game natin,
Yes.
baka siguro iba ang ating pinagkikwentuhan ngayon dito sa interview ito. But again, that's all water under the bridge, and I think we just have to move on. Coach, I want to ask you about the future. Where, hindi ikaw, but where, I know ikaw, wala kang problema, but where do we go from here, ang Pilipinas? What are the lessons that we can take from this experience to build a program for the future? Dahil hindi naman to katapusan ng ating basketball itong World Cup na ito.
Yeah, I think we have put the foundations in place. The players coming through the under-16, under-17 program. We have a lot of players already who have gotten their passports. They're all eligible. Mason Amos, all of those guys, Calum Harris, Alex Konov, Elijah Williams, the fantastic point guard. Even the starting point guard ng US under-16, Pinoy yun, si JJ Mandakit, already has a Philippine passport. So, and then nakikita mo naman yung nucleus ng current lineup, di ba? Kai, AJ, Dwight, Renz Abando, they're all very young. They're all 25
Yes.
and below. So, nakikita mo na, nandiyan na the team of the future, the team of the present is taking place. If we can just get Carl Tamayo, Justin Baltasar to come in and join, and then get the other point guards to come in, SJ, Ron J, Barrientos, then makikita mo na yung development ng team and ng pagbubuo ng team, the development of the program. So I think in so far as the program for Philippine basketball, that's nakalatag na. It's there. The pipeline is ready. So we just need to make sure that we are constantly addressing the biggest problem, which is player availability. Yun lang naman yun.
Right.
Basta player availability tayo on a consistent basis, then hopefully tuloy-tuloy na. Because while we did not achieve the results we wanted in this World Cup, we
Right.
performed better than 2019 and 2014. So the trajectory is an upward trajectory. So tuloy-tuloy tayo. So I think that's the one positive we can take.
Yan po mga kapatid ng ating panayam with former Gilas head coach Chot Reyes. Konti na lamang ang hindi natin ipinalabas dyan. Sabi niya ito yung pinakamahirap na naging assignment niya ever sa kanyang 3 stints as a national coach. And of course, sinabi niya yung kanyang panghihinayang na hindi niya nakuha yung panalo para sa atin. Hate him or love him, all we know is that Coach Chot Reyes is put everything into that particular assignment at ganun talaga ho ang basketball. Minsan kinakapos. One takeaway, of course, yung sinasabi niyang player availability. And again, that is the biggest question. Sana yan ay masolusyonan. Alam niyo ba ho yan yung Germany team na nanalo at pumasok ng finals? 3 years ang commitment ng mga players dyan sa Germany. Kaya po, nagsimula yan last year, this year, and then the Olympics. So, yun po sana ang mangyari sa atin. Huwag na tayo magpa-tune up, magpa-try out. Pumili na po tayo ng committed players and keep them together. That might be something na dapat isipin ng mga bagong namumuno dyan po sa Gilas, Pilipinas. Alright, more on Gilas in just a while. Pero samantala, ito muna po, isang paalala mula sa ating mga kaibigan sa Smart. Puso Pilipinas is a movement to celebrate the Filipino athlete powered by Smart. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Get a chance to win exclusive Puso Pilipinas merch by sharing their Facebook page in your social media accounts with hashtag Puso Pilipinas. The Giga Life app is the latest mobile app from Smart that lets you discover and enjoy your passions with the different Giga promos. It can be downloaded and used by Smart Postpaid, Smart Prepaid, Bro Prepaid, and TNT subscribers via the Apple or Google Play Store. What can the Giga Life app do for me? Check your balance, monitor your current subscription, top up using debit credit card, subscribe to the latest Giga promos, monitor your data consumption, auto-detect your mobile number when you are connected to Smart Network one-tap subscription to the most popular offer, Giga Video 99. And of course, we are powered by Smart. Live more today. When we return, ang ating po mga kasama, ang bagong head coach ng Gilas Pilipinas, si Coach Tim Cone, live sa Power and Play. Hatid sa inyo ng Cherry Loom, Cherry Tigo, Chooks to Go, at ng True Religion. Ang oras po natin, 8:42 ng umaga. This time check is brought to you by M2T Drinks. Drink your gulay and fuel up on energy with M2T Drinks with malunggay, okra, and luya, your natural source of electrolytes.
I dare to dream big, to be a voice of my generation, to inspire resilience in the face of roadblocks. And in sharing my stories, I let others share in my passion.
Follow Kai's stories on Twitter and share yours with Smart Double Giga Stories. Share 2 times the passion with 2 gigabytes for Twitter and more. Guaranteed every day, plus data for all sites.
Simple, smart ako.
Sherry.
Nag-uumapaw sa real chicken juice na swak sa panlasa ng buong pamilya. Available in sweet roast, pepper roast, at harissa roast variants. Chooks to go. Masarap kahit walang sauce. Tawag na sa Chooks to Go Delivery Hotline 8687-1010 o online sa chookstogodelivery.com or via GrabFood at Foodpanda.
Pinarangalan ng PMAP bilang Radio Station of the Year, Radyo 5, True FM.
Dito tayo sa totoo.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay Cherry Loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, Cherry Loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Totoong abot na abot ang True FM saan man panig ng Pilipinas at sa buong mundo. Basta may Pilipino. Sundan at ilike ang Radyo 5 True FM sa Facebook, TikTok, Instagram at sa X o Twitter. Dito na tayo sa totoo. True FM. Tunay na kapatid. Maaasahan sa radyo at online.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Gusto mo bang manalo ng cash prizes araw-araw? Tumutok lang dito sa pinakabagong interactive game show ng Pinoy, ang Spin Go! Kaya maging pinduteros at pinduteras sa inyong mga tahanan. Tumutok at magtantos hanggang sa makompleto ang numero. Gamit ang inyong Spin Go app. May chance kang manalo ng up to 100,000 pesos. At consolation prizes na worth 1,000 pesos araw-araw. Spin Go! Sa September 11 na. Tutok lang sa TV5.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Mga ngawit ang panganyo sa katatawa dahil ang kombinasyon ng gulat at sorpresa nandito na. Doble-doble ang saya. Doble-doble ang kwela. Abangan si Wally Bayola at Jose Manalo sa
Good jokes never go old. Kaya naman tuloy ang good time sa
Wow, Mali! Doble tama. Malapit na dito sa TV5.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Broadcasting from the Radyo 5 studios in Reliance Street, Mandaluyong City, in Mega Manila. 25,000 watts of true broadcast quality. Mas pinalakas, mas pinalawak, mas pinalinaw na tunog ng AM sa FM. Ito ang 92.3 Radyo 5 True FM. True FM. Dito tayo sa totoo.
Power and Play with Com Noli Iyala. Naimbang kabigat kada kayo amin sa lahat po ng ating mga kababayan dyan po sa Vigan, Ilocos Sur, and of course sa San Esteban, Ilocos Sur. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Alright, our next guest of course is, there's no need for any real big introductions. Everybody knows him. And the latest of course to his resume, he will be the 2023 Asian Games head coach of the Philippine national team. No other than Barangay Ginebra head coach, Coach Tim Cone. Good morning, Tim. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, happy to be here. It's been a while. We've been busy with the World Cup for so long. We just haven't had time to do much but focus on the World Cup. So
I know
energy goes elsewhere.
I know, and I thought after the World Cup I would have some time with you, but now you're even more, you're even busier. So I want to go straight to that because I already spoke with Chot about the past, about the World Cup. I want to look forward now with you, Coach Tim. And of course, the biggest news is your appointment as the head coach for the Asian Games. You said, I want to start with this. You said that if Chot goes, you would go initially. What changed your mind?
Well, I got a call from my big boss, and he said he asked me to do it. So, and I really didn't want to follow Chot. That was never my intention to. I just wanted to support Chot, be behind him, just serve where I could. It was never my intention to take over for him, and I made that clear to him. And when he resigned, I was 100% sure I really didn't want to be in that position to follow him.
Mm-hmm.
I was willing to work at any other, if he wanted me as an assistant coach or consultant, fine. But I didn't want to follow Chot in. He's a close friend of mine. I didn't want to be in that position. But I was planning on saying no. But when boss RSA, said that I needed to do it, then I needed to do it. So
absolutely.
And so, now that's over, that's done with. I'm one of those guys that doesn't look back. I don't look back at all. I've made a career out of moving forward. So I'm not, now that this is in front of us, I'm real excited to do it, and I'm ready to do it to the best of my ability. I got great support in Al Francis Chua and Al Panilio and the SBP group behind me. So we're excited. We're still trying to put the lineup together, but I'm excited to do it now.
Well, you're not new to the job. This is your second time to be handling the national team in the Asian Games. And of course, you were the last team that actually won a medal in the Asian
That was
Games.
45 years ago.
I know, 45 years ago.
It
Now,
doesn't seem like this is my second
25
time.
years ago.
Like my first time again.
But are you, since you're not new to the job, you know what it entails? Are you at all afraid, Tim? Concerned?
Well, I mean, you're always concerned. You go into a PBA game, you're concerned that your guys are ready. You're concerned that they're going to play their best game. You always have concerns. You're concerned whether you prepared them well. Whether somebody's not going to get injured or something. You're always concerned. That's not ever an issue. But what we the thing that we focus on that takes away all those anxieties is just the day-to-day work. It's like what we're going to do today and then what we're going to do tomorrow. It's just in the day-to-day work that we're going to do. And we just feel if we do the work every day, and this is what we try to communicate with the players, if we do the work every day, the winning will take care of itself. The losing will take care of itself too. Depending on how well you do that day. So, that's how you kind of appease yourself from that anxiety, those concerns. You just stay with what's right in front of you, focus right there. And, if you give your best effort every day, and then, you're going to give your best effort when it's important.
All right. Let me ask you about this, because Chot has said that one of the biggest factors for the failure of the team, and he said this was his own words, his failures, is that the lack of time together. Again, the team got together only a few days before the opening of the World Cup, although they had the luxury of preparing during the qualifiers. You are also in the same boat. You have, starting Monday when you begin your practices, you have approximately about 12 days till the opening of the Asian Games. What makes you think that Gilas will perform better given the same circumstances?
Well, I'm not saying they are going to perform better. Understandingly, it's a tough situation to be in, and honestly, it wasn't one that I sought out, obviously, because I realized how tough it's going to be. And but again, we're not going to go there thinking, oh, I hope we just get a bronze, or I hope we make it through the first round, or I hope we get a silver. No, we're going to go there with the idea that we expect that we expect to get a gold. I mean, it's like joining the PBA. You don't start the conference off thinking, oh, I hope I make third place, or I hope I, just make it to the semis, or even to the finals. No, you have one goal and one goal only. That's to win the championship. And so when we go to the Asian Games, we know it's going to be tough.
Right.
We know the other teams are going to be probably a little ahead of us, and we're not going to have the continuity that we want with all the players from Japan being here. We're not going to have that, and we're going to basically have 70% of the team is going to be new guys who have played for me or been around me. So we know these obstacles are all there, but it doesn't minimize the fact that our big goal is to win a gold medal, and that's all we're going to go for. Saying we're going to get one is kind of silly, because even then, when we start the conference in the PBA, we don't come out and say, oh, we're going to win that championship. No, we got to fight for it. We got to, again, get back to what we do daily.
Right.
And that's what we're going to do for 12 days or 14 days. We're going to work. We're going to do 2-a-day practices at some point. We're going to do whatever it takes to put our best foot forward and represent the country.
All right.
And that's the goal. Put our best foot forward, represent the country, fight for gold.
Well, that's really a good way to start, because really tempering expectations is also one way to make sure that everyone's stable and everyone's calm. Now, let me ask you about this, Coach, because Chot in the interview also said that if there was one pitfall, he would advise you is it to stick to the timetable that you've said. You've said that on Monday you begin practices, and whoever players will be there available will be I guess the people that you will consider. Are you sticking with that, or will you be waiting for people? I understand some of the B leaguers might have a chance. I understand Mikey Williams is well, this is what's going around. Even injuries. What is your philosophy there, Coach Tim? Will you wait for others?
We are going to go with 12 players. There's no pool. There's no tryouts. We don't have time to do that kind of things. We just don't have the time. So we got to start going. We got to just, try to fill the positions, make sure we have enough depth in the point guard position, the off guard position, the small forward position. We have depth behind Justin, and we have the five, the center position filled out. Those are our concerns, and that's the way we're looking at it. We're not looking to bring the 12 best players that we can get. That doesn't make a team. It's really trying to find the pieces of the puzzle where guys will fit, and it's a little bit of a guessing game at this point, because we're not going to have tryouts or a pool, but. We're going to call in 12 guys starting tomorrow, and we're going to go with those 12 guys.
All right.
I'm not bringing 13. I'm not bringing 14 or even 15. If we get an injury along the way, then we'll reconsider. But right now, it's we're having there's multiple issues going on in terms of putting the lineup together. Number one is that we cannot use the Japanese guys or the Koreans, and that means. Dwight Ramos, Edu, the Ravenna brothers. We can't use any of those guys. We can't use Renz Obando because they're under obligation to their mother teams in Japan and Korea. And they are under no obligation, because this is not a FIBA-sponsored tournament. They're under no obligation to release the players to us to play in this thing, as opposed to the World Cup or the qualifiers or things like that. They are required to release those players. So I think that's important to make clear. I think a lot of people, why aren't you going to use Dwight? Why aren't you going to use Kai Soto, Edu? Why don't you use JC, Jordan Clarkson? Well, Jordan is back in the NBA. He can't be released either. We have to go through that. And then the UAAP has told us that we can't use a UAAP, although last night there was some backing backing off on that, so we're not clear, but we're going to figure that out today. And then by tonight, we will have our 12 guys, and they will show up tomorrow at practice.
I want to ask you about that, because there was a list that was submitted by the Philippine Olympic Committee. Are you going to be limited by that, or are there still names that are on your wish list that you will still ask the POC to include for the Asian Games?
There was a list of 60 players that was given back a couple months ago, even before we went to Lithuania. I remember that I was there when they were talking about it, that they had to submit 60 names. And I wasn't involved in picking those names.
All right.
I had no idea what the list was. But since that time, we found out it's about 30 PBA players and 30 PBA players outside the PBA, including UAAP, including guys from Japan, Korea, including some possible naturalized players and such. So we're really got a pool of 30 that we're supposed to select from. There are a couple of guys, actually more than a couple of guys, that we would like, that I personally would like, that is outside that list. And we're making an appeal to see if we can get those guys. And that has not been communicated to us yet, whether we can or not. And that's going to affect the 12 guys that we have in the lineup. So those two guys are kind of what you call on the bubble at
All
this
right.
point.
There-
And
th-
but we're really hoping we get them. So
There's one particular guy that has been on the news, and you've mentioned this, Justin Baltasar, and I want to just put on the statements that have been made between you and him that was carried by Spin, and you have said that you have tried to get Balti, but he was not available. And of course, Baltasar and his camp, including Governor Pineda, claims otherwise. Tim, do you stand by your statements, and what's going on with this?
Oh man, that's just something that was thrown at me during the press conference, and it's funny you're in a press conference for 2 hours and they pick on one little thing that happened to be said. First of all, I didn't say I have tried to. I said we have tried to get him. I was never involved in that process of trying to get him. I've never been in the process of recruiting guys. I was told when I was with the national team that we had made multiple efforts to try to get him, and we never were able to. What the reasons were, I do not know. Whether he was busy in Korea or busy here or couldn't do it here, or maybe the miscommunication. I don't know. I don't know anything about that issue.
So my only question, Tim, is my only question is, if you really want him, why don't you just invite him? He says he's available.
Well, first of all, I mean, I wouldn't mind, but I don't know him. The last time I saw him play was in LaSalle, 2-3 years ago, during the pandemic. So, we're going to go with guys who are familiar to us at this point. If we had a pool and we could bring him in and take a look at him, then fine, that would be great. But at this point, it's just, I mean, if I had more time, then yes, we would invite him. But someone asked me about him, and I said, we've tried him before, and he hasn't been available.
All right.
But again, I mean, he may be absolutely right. I do not know. Maybe we have never called him. I don't know. But to me, it's an absolute non-issue at this point. I don't have time to worry about that.
Exactly.
I just got to continue to move on.
Yeah, these are things that are just unnecessary. All right, let's talk about what's more necessary. What's the condition of Ange Kwame and Justin Brownlee? How are they? Are they going to be in the lineup?
Well, I don't want to talk about the lineup too much because we're still full in it, but obviously those are two guys that are obvious that we need to bring along. That's one of the things about the Asian Games is that you are not restricted by how many naturalized players you can bring. So, like the Southeast Asian game when Cambodia showed up with 7 naturalized players, we could very well see that in the Asian Games. We could see somebody, I don't know, maybe Bahrain or somebody. I'm not using Bahrain, just using Bahrain as an example. Or Thailand or somebody, or could come in with a bunch of naturalized players like we saw in the Southeast Asian Games. As it is, that gives us permission to use Justin and Ange together,
right?
Which is a good break for us. I mean, we could actually use Jordan Clarkson too.
I know.
We could have all of them playing in this Asian game, but Jordan's not available. Obviously, NBA camps have started already. They started on the 6th of this month.
But are they in shape? Is Kwame in shape? He's not injured?
Well, Kwame just came from the Jones Cup with Rick Stein, so he's been playing and practicing.
All right,
so
and he's available.
He is available. I spoke to him yesterday, and he'll be in practice tomorrow.
All right.
And Justin is just, obviously he's available. Health is still a little bit of a question. The doctors have actually told us that he could play. It would be better if he told us it would be better if he skipped the Asian Games and just focused on the return to the conference. But if necessary, he could play in the Asian Games. So,
all right. Well,
he's going to play out. So we're not 100% sure he's 100%, but he's going to try.
That's a sacrifice ultimately, of course, also for Barangay Ginebra. Your practices start on Monday. You have about 12 days. What's the plan, Coach Tim? Are you going to have a training camp? Are you setting up a training camp? Are you going to have any tune-up games just before you leave for Hangzhou?
Well, again, it's kind of, we're still trying to put all the schedules together. But right now, yeah, we're scheduled to go to the Inspire camp for about 5 or 6 days. Where we'll do basically 3-a-day practices. We'll practice in the morning, do weight sessions during the lunch period, and then practice again in the evenings. And that'll be intensive. We'll meet afterwards, and we'll look at video of Jordan and some of the teams. We'll review, video on the practices that we've done throughout the day. So in effect, it's we'll be together 4 times a day throughout that each day. So it's going to be a tough schedule for the guys. I think they'll understand the immediacy of what we're trying to do and how hard it's going to be to get everybody together. So we'll be doing that. We have a game scheduled with one of the Korean club teams.
All right.
LG Stackers. We'll play them, and hopefully that'll give us a little feel for how the Koreans play, which we haven't had in the World Cup. So we have something. We're hoping to look at some other things, but obviously we're not going to travel somewhere and play because we just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Anybody who's around, I'm sure we'll be able to play a PBA team or two with their import as well.
When I hear this, and obviously, you're doing this on the fly now. Everything has to be done as the day goes by. Could we have prepared better? Given what we've been through, you knew that there was a lack of time in the World Cup. We're coming off a loss. We're losing players that were in the World Cup team. Couldn't we have planned? We knew that we were going to play in the Asian Games. Couldn't we have planned better?
You're talking about things that's above my pay grade.
I know.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy.
All right, so I know, and I know your thoughts, and I know you don't want to say anything. So I want to ask you about this.
Underling that is being told, okay, you take care of it now. It's not as clean as we want it to be, but it's on us to try to fix it and move forward. And my idea right now, the thing right now is that I just got to deal with what's ahead of us, and that's the Asian Games, and that's all I'm responsible for.
Yeah,
I am the absolute interim coach. After the Asian Games is over, the whole idea for me to do this is to give the SBP and all the basketball powers around to take a strong look at what we did right and what we did wrong through this World Cup, through the Asian Games, what we did throughout the year, and then decide what direction they want to go once this thing is done. They'll have time now. The qualifiers are coming up for the Olympics, and they'll have to figure out a plan for that. One thing right now is Al Francis is deeply involved. Al Francis Chu is deeply involved with the program, and I tell you what, he is a doer. Al Francis is a doer, and he's going to make things happen. And so I think the program will has a chance to jump with leaps and bounds with him involved with it.
But I just can't believe that this is happening. I mean, that the Asian Games was not prepared in a much better way, given the prestige also of the Asian Games. Tim,
I really think that the focus was because it was at home and we were hosting.
Well, yeah.
The true focus was really the World Cup. The Asian Games was an afterthought, and I think everybody got locked in to let's do the best we can for the World Cup. And it wasn't just the SPP is not just involved with the team. The SPP was the league guys and the hosting.
Tim, you don't have to be an apologist for the SPP, Tim.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's honest. Truly, it's they had a lot on their plate in terms of hosting this whole thing.
I understand, but I understand, but you are the federation. You are the federation taking care of basketball for the Asian Games as well, and that's no excuse. I'm so sorry. So let me ask you. No, I don't want to argue with you, Tim, and I want to end this on a positive note. You mentioned, and I have a few moments here because Brian Windhurst is already online, but I want to ask you about this. You mentioned that you're an interim coach. Are you staying only for the Asian Games? Do you want to go beyond that?
No, I do not want to go beyond that. I'm just hopefully, just helping out the SPP and the country at this point. That's my goal. Just do the Asian Games and let them decide. It was basically very similar to when I did the Southeast Asian Games in 2019. I was just holding the position, allowing them to have time to figure out what to do in the future. So I'm in that same situation now in 2023, and hopefully, if we can do half as well as we did in Southeast Asian Games, I'll be happy the way we perform here in the Asian Games.
My goodness, this is a real act of valor from you, and I salute you, Tim. This is truly a brave act, accepting this job on the fly, and I wish you all the best. I certainly hope that you get all the players that you need, and somehow we get a different kind of luck in the Asian Games. Coach
We
Tim?
will see, but we're going to work it every day. That's going to be the key for us. We're going to put everything in daily, and we'll see how it works out.
Well, I know you will. You will. I know you, and the PBA's winningest coach will obviously stamp his mark on this team. Thank you so much, Coach Tim, and good luck to the Asian Games.
Thank you for having me. All
Mga
the best.
kaibigan, si Coach Tim Cohn, the PBA's winningest coach, now handling Gilas Pilipinas. Just a tough job. And let's just pray for the national team. I mean, let's just give our full support. No matter how flawed it has been, kung gaano man kahina ang ng mga pangyayari, suportahan po natin ang ating Gilas Pilipinas. Alright, before we take a break, isa muna pong pagsilip sa mga pop culture at viral videos sa mundo ng palakasan sa Stop and Pop.
Power and Play with Com Noli Iyala.
Ang title ng video natin sa linggo ngayon ay Skywalker. Hindi po yung sa Star Wars, ha? Panoorin niyo po ito, ha? As in, literal na naglalakad po sa kalangitan. Panoorin po natin ang ating video. Isang skydiver. Pasok nga natin, Santi. Mukhang nagka-problema tayo. Alright, let's try to do that a little later because we are getting ready for our special guest. We'll take a very, very quick break. When we return, we will have one of the most respected sports writers in the U.S. Brian Windhurst is in the house with for Power and Play. Ito po ang Power and Play hatid sa inyo ng Cherry Loom, Cherry Tigo, Chooks to Go at ng True Religion. Ang oras po natin, 9:12 in the morning. This time check is brought to you by M2T Drinks. Drink your gulay and fuel up on energy with M2T Drinks with malunggay, okra, and luya, your natural source of electrolytes. We'll be back.
I dare to dream big. To be a voice of my generation. To inspire resilience in the face of roadblocks. And in sharing my stories, I let others share in my passion.
Follow Kai Stories on Twitter and share yours. With Smart Double Giga Stories. Share 2 times the passion with 2 gigabytes for Twitter and more. Guaranteed every day. Plus data for all sites.
Simple, smart ako.
Sherry.
Nag-uumapaw sa real chicken juice. Naswak sa panlasa ng buong pamilya. Available in sweet roast, pepper roast, at harissa roast variants. Chooks to go. Masarap kahit walang sauce. Tawag na sa Chooks to Go Delivery Hotline 8687-1010 o online sa chookstogodelivery.com or via GrabFood at Foodpanda.
Pinarangalan ng PMAP bilang Radio Station of the Year. Radyo 5, True FM.
Dito tayo sa totoo.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
Team Ambida, ready na for round 2.
Narinig mo yun asawa ko? Enzo?
Aba, may bagong manggugulo.
Oh my God! Janet! Oh my Nosy!
Paano kaya haharapin ng pamilyang palaban ng bagong hamon ng buhay? Kaya wag nang papahuli dahil Team A may round 2 na. Kasama ang mas masaya at mas malaking pamilya ng Team A. Round 2 tuwing Sabado 5:15 p.m. dito sa TV5.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
May namiss ka bang mga shoot, pasa at hiyawan? Ngayon, hindi na! Dahil araw-araw mo nang mapapanood ang mga paborito mong sports program sa TV. Watch us on these channels. Free TV Channel 41, Signal TV Channel 6, Sky Cable Channel 59. One Sports, ito ang go-to tambayan for your favorite sports programs. Dito ka na sa paboritong tambayan mo pagdating sa sports.
Mukhang kailangan ko na naman palitan ng bubong ko, pare. Mag-iisang taong pa lang yan. May tulo na kagad.
Ay, bossing! Baka naman kasi hindi matibay yung ginamit nyo. Dapat ang gamitin mo ay cherry loom, ang yerong aluminum. Basta yero, cherry loom. Tibay protektado sa pangmatagalang yero.
25,000 watts ng totoong tunog ng FM radio.
Totoong pinalakas, totoong pinagtibay ng mga batikang mamamahayag sa paghahatid ng news,
Public service,
entertainment,
music,
information at inspiration para sa bawat kapatid, bawat Pilipino. Ito ang 92.3 Radyo 5 True FM. Dito tayo sa totoo.
Power and Play with Noli Iyala. Mayang buntag, ganin niyo tanan sa lahat po ng ating mga viewers and listeners sa Cebu City. At kamusta po nga pala sa aking golf coach, ang aking trainer and coach, Coach Kevin Lachica. Happy birthday, Coach. Hope you're having a good time. All right.
Happy birthday!
Talking about having a good time, where we will have a good time right now with with a very, very special guest. You know, I met him the other day, and I had just a great chance to be with somebody that I follow, not only in terms of his podcast, but also in terms of his writing. He is, of course, a renowned and respected sports writer in the U.S., an ESPN writer and host of the Hoop Collective podcast with Bontemps and McMahon. No other than our special guest today, Brian Windhurst. Good morning, Brian. Thanks for joining us on Power and Play.
Good morning, Noli. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, you've been here for 2 weeks now, and obviously you've seen a lot. You've seen the 38,000 attendance when we opened the World Cup. You've seen a lot of the basketball that we play here. But what has impressed you so far in your stay in Manila, Brian?
Well, I think two things. One, the kindness of the people, which I was told about before I came. But every person that I've encountered has been nothing but kind. It's not something I'm used to all the time in the United States. And then I think, if you're a serious basketball person, you should come to the Philippines at least once, I think, because it's such a high-class basketball knowledge. The fans here, yes, they have their favorites, the Lakers, of course. But I see fans, wearing jerseys from players all across the NBA. I have conversations with fans who talk about teams all across the NBA. I came across a fan a couple of days ago who was very upset because his beloved Utah Jazz, Walker Kessler from the American team, wasn't playing. And I saw a fan in a Markel Fultz jersey from the Orlando Magic, proudly wearing it. And it's not something you necessarily see when you're just sort of out in the United States, maybe in Orlando. But so I think the knowledge of the fans, the general NBA knowledge of the fans, and the kindness of the fans. And there's some spectacular malls in Manila, which I get because apparently for a couple of months here it rains a lot because we had about a 10-day stretch where it rained every day.
Right.
But the malls are something that are very impressive. I've been to several.
Well, I heard that you've also been enjoying our food in Manila, the food life. My daughter actually saw you in Amano the other night, and enjoying your food. And of course, the golf it's just too bad that golf wasn't available. But talking about excellent, Brian, I want to go straight to this. There were some excellent games last night in the World Cup in the semifinals. First of all, of course, Serbia beating Canada. It's pretty impressive considering that the Serbians don't have their best players. In fact, they don't probably have some of their top players in this team, and yet they won. Was this a surprise for you at all?
Yeah, the Serbian team, Sergio Hernandez, who was the coach of Argentina for many, many years, led Argentina to medals in the World Cup and medals in the Olympics. He gave an interview 2 days ago, and he said, I think Serbia is going to win because I think Serbia plays the best concept and the best team defense. And I paid attention to that because this is a man that I've covered for years, and I know he doesn't just say things. And so, one of the things I think that happens in America is whenever America loses, they always say, well, we just formed our team and these other teams have been playing together for 10 years and it's a disadvantage. Well, sometimes that's true, but sometimes that isn't true. And in this case with Serbia, it isn't true. Yes, many of these players have been on the national team in some form for a while, but this team is very new. This is a coach that is, while he's very respected and has a decorated history, Perisic, he has not been their coach of this group before. This group basically has been assembled in this form for 2 months. And they practiced very aggressively. I just heard Tim Cohn on here talking about doing 3-a-day workouts. That would never fly in America. But I was talking to Bogdan Bogdanovic of the Serbian team yesterday after they won, and he said when we first got together, the coach was putting us through 2-a-days and these long meetings. We weren't sure about him. And obviously, they came together very quickly and have a tremendous team concept and a tremendous spirit. And yeah, they're missing arguably, 2 or 3 of their 5 best players in their country. But they play terrifically together. They play with vision. They play egoless, and it showed. It showed throughout this tournament. It showed against the Canadians, and I think it will show probably tomorrow in the championship game. So you certainly have to appreciate the way Serbia plays, and you certainly have to appreciate that. Nikola Jokic and Vise Misic, who's would be their starting point guard.
That's right.
They're one of the best player in the world, and Misic probably their best point guard. Maybe it's debatable. Are not here, and here they are in the final. So I think, especially from an American standpoint, it kind of removes the concept of taking an excuse because your team doesn't have chemistry.
Exactly. And, I read a lot about that, that the Americans didn't send their best team, and yet we see the Serbian team coming up with a tremendous performance, particularly after losing to Italy. In fact, it may have been a blessing in disguise, but do you see, Brian? Obviously, the Serbians played as a team. They out-rebounded the Canadians. They outshot them, although the Canadians shot almost 60% last night. The Serbians hit 71% of their shots. And, of course, in three-point shooting, again, the Serbians played so well. Do you think it's the FIBA style, the NBA players just having a more difficult time adjusting to this kind of maybe conditions, the game today, the stakes, as well as the officiating?
Officiating is a big factor. There's a couple of things that are huge for NBA players that are difficult for them to transition to. One is that in the NBA, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, they have really changed the rules to allow the players to move freely throughout the court and freely within the offense. And that's just that's just not the case in FIBA basketball. They just allow a tremendous amount of contact, and not just FIBA, but European style basketball. When you watch European leagues and you watch European, pan European, the Euro League, they allow a tremendous amount of contact off the ball. And so that is something that is a big adjustment. The second thing, especially an issue for the Americans, is the traveling rules.
Yeah.
I think FIBA is definitely a more pure form of basketball. If you were to, follow the rules, create it in a laboratory, that's the case. The NBA is a more fan-friendly designed, more, attract. It's certain things are done to make the game more attractive to the fan. And it's like to me, just as a quick example of this, against Italy a couple of days ago, right at the end of the third quarter, the Americans were up big, and Tyrese Halliburton made this great play, went between his legs midair, threw it up to Paolo Banchero, who dunked it. This was the number one highlight play in the United States from this tournament. It was a lot of excitement from the U.S. players after the game, and it almost caused a fight on the court between the Italians and the Americans. So Steve Kerr and the Italian coach kind of had words about it after the game. And, I was asked by a number of European journalists whether or not this was, a breach of etiquette. And meanwhile, it's the most popular thing for the players. This is how the Americans see the game. They want to have a little bit of fun. They want to trash talk a little bit. They, a little bit of taunting is encouraged in the NBA. Highlight plays are encouraged. That's not really the FIBA style. FIBA is like, we're going to have business, all business.
Right.
So when it comes back to the traveling rules, is that, there's certain things that American players are used to doing that are clearly against the letter of the law. It doesn't mean that they don't have mastery of the game. It just, the NBA doesn't want whistles. They want as few whistles as possible. They want guys making great athletic plays. They're not as worried about the pivot foot being 100% accurate. So that's one thing that is an issue that they run into here. And it's not because they're ill prepared or they're stupid. It's just because it's not the way that they play.
All right.
So in the case of the Canada game, the Canadians could not figure out why they were allowing off-ball contact, like hand fighting, but then when anybody bumped on ball, they called a foul. The answer to that is because that's what FIBA does. That's the FIBA rules, and that's just not something. That's definitely something the Canadians and the U.S. Were disadvantaged.
Well, talking about the U.S. game, of course, the United States lost to Germany in what was a really good game. It was a well-played game, excellent from the very beginning, and it was actually very balanced. The Germans were up by 12 with about 4 minutes to go, and all of a sudden the Americans made a run, and of course that 3-point shot of Obst at the end, and of course that missed shot of Anthony Edwards also was a turning point. But Brian, how disappointing is this loss for the U.S. Considering that the Americans were hoping, they sent their top coaches in this particular tournament with Steve Kerr and Spoelstra and Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy and few. How disappointing is this, and how much does this push back the program of the USA?
Yeah, well, anytime the U.S. loses, it's very disappointing. The expectations that they're going to win. The truth is that when you include the exhibition games, the friendlies, dating back to the last three international major events, which would be the 2019 World Cup, the 2021 Olympics, and now the World Cup here in the Philippines, U.S. has lost 9 times. They lost 3 times in the last World Cup. They may lose 3 times in this one. They lost at the Olympics. They lost a whole number of friendlies. The U.S. loses games now. And part of it is because that the top players, there's been an erosion of the desire for the top players, the absolute premium players, to play in the events, especially in the World Cup, because FIBA has made the decision to put the World Cup and the Olympics in back-to-back summers. Yeah. That is just costing. It's already a tough sell for some American players, but now it's really tough sell. And That's part of it. Is that they don't have it. The other part of it is just there's just terrific international competition, and so the U.S. loses games. They didn't lose between 2006 and 2019. They lost. They didn't have a loss in a major competition for 13 years. Clearly, that area is over. And one of the reasons that this is a disappointing loss is that the U.S. This loss was. You mentioned, Noli, that it was a well played game. I think it was a well played game. There were certain things that the U.S. Did maybe that wasn't their best, but what lost in this game for the Americans was their strategy. Within the terms that Steve Kerr and Grant Hill, who those are the two guys who pretty much picked the team. This team did what it was supposed to do, but the strategy was flawed, and that strategy was basically to play small.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and so that's a bigger issue beyond just the loss last night. That's a bigger issue for the American team going forward.
Actually, that's a point that I wanted to ask you. Size was clearly a problem, not only in this particular game. When the U.S. lost to Lithuania, they were also exposed there in terms of the size. You know how Austin Reeves was abused at the low post, and how Valanciunas and Montejunas took care of the boards. In this particular game, it was the same thing. When the Germans put together their bigs, Voigtman, Thies, Thiemann, and the Wagners, there was a bit of separation. What's happening to the bigs of the Americans, Brian? Is this a product of the small ball concept that worked very well for the Warriors, and now it's biting back?
I mean, this is part of a bigger issue. There's not a lot of great. Well, first off, there's almost no very good American centers. There's some excellent American big men, but the biggest, tallest people in America who come into the NBA don't want to play center. Anthony Davis doesn't want to play center. So this is and the NBA game is evolving that way. I mean, and this is not just in America. We have Victor Wembanyama as the number one pick. He's 7'5". He does not intend to play center.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how France uses him in the Olympics, going forward, especially when Rudy Gobert retires. But it's not that that's against. If you go down and look at the 30 starting centers in the NBA, the majority are not American. And when you look at the best centers, the majority, they're not American. So the U.S., knowing this deficit, designed a team that was designed to play small and fast. And not only did they design it, but Steve Kerr, believing that was the way his team had to win, leaned into it. And what I mean by that is he did have one center on his roster, Walker Kessler. He basically didn't play him. I mean, Walker Kessler is 7'1", I think, 7'2". He is an absolute center. He resembles a bunch of the centers that they've faced in the last week, especially because they played 4 consecutive European teams. That's what you're going to have. I mean, of the 8 teams that made the quarterfinal, 6 of them are European. That's just the way it's going to be. And you go. And by the way, had they, made one more 3-pointer and won last night's game, they were going to face a big, strong Serbian team. Their center Nikolai Moltinov is one of the best, strongest centers in the tournament. So it wasn't like that was solved. So not only did they not have a great selection to choose from, but the guys that they did choose, Steve Kerr decided to play small. I mean, he elected to start Josh Hart at power forward. Josh Hart's 6'5". So Kerr and Grant Hill made basically a gamble that their style would work. Speed, quickness, agility, guard play would work against the size. It did not. It did not work against Montenegro. I mean, was a game that they won. It did not work against Lithuania, a loss. And Italy didn't have great size. I mean, they have a little bit, but not really. So they got away with that one there. And then they run into great size at Germany and they get battered again. And honestly, against Serbia, they would have big problems on that side too. So they had a flawed team that they weren't able to overcome.
We know that the world has become undaunted by American basketball, and partly to blame, of course, is the dream team that really exposed the basketball to the world. And as you mentioned, the World Cup is now just a year before the Olympics. So again, player availability is a problem. Do you think that the U.S. will ever put their top teams in the top players in the World Cup, given this kind of schedule and given the fact that I guess how they perceive the World Cup to be in terms of importance?
It's going to be hard. In 20 years from now, maybe FIBA will claim victory in that the World Cup qualifying will feel like the soccer World Cup qualifying, where the best players, excuse me, play in the qualifying windows where they, play. And by the way, it generated a very good tournament. I mean, I don't think FIBA is upset at all with this final. I think they're thrilled with it. Frankly, I mean, this is the third World Cup that I have covered. It's the third time the U.S. has not won or even reached the gold medal game. And in all three situations, I've witnessed, giddiness from FIBA officials that the U.S. didn't win, because I think they like the idea that it's more of an international competition. So I think FIBA is very happy with this change, but this change on the back-to-back years is going to make it hard for the top NBA players to do it. They're just not going to commit to it. You're always going to have a younger team. And I will say that, overall though, regardless, even if it was every other year, every off year between the Olympics, and there was 2 years in between the Olympics and World Cup, the U.S. would still have a problem with size, Noli.
Right.
There's an erosion away from guys who want to play center. The Europeans, their centers can shoot threes. Yes, I mean that's the modern game, but they also like to go play center. They like to go down there in the trenches and play tough and play big and act like centers from yesteryear. And the American players don't like that.
All right. Can we just try to turn off the mic, please, of our link, Mike? I think we're getting some interference. All right, Brian, let's just preview a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on Germany versus Serbia. What do you think about this game?
Well, it's, there's a number of players on both teams that I know. Germany has a combination that is kind of rare. So one of the things that you typically see in European teams is great bigs, but suspect guard play.
Right.
And that's essentially what the U.S.'s strategy was. We'll beat the Europeans with our guard play. The Germans have a great guard in Dennis Schroeder. Now he's a bit of a mercurial player because
we saw
he sometimes
video.
Gets a little bit selfish. The game against Latvia. I mean, you would not have watched the game against Latvia and said that team you deserved to win that game, much less could win the gold, because Schroeder was playing ridiculously. But he didn't play ridiculously against the Americans. He played a much more democratic game. He's such a terrific ball handler and has such great speed that he is a weapon as a guard. You just don't have it that much, in the European teams. And so that combined with their size, I mean, the Germans bring NBA players, or at least, an NBA player off the bench. And that is not something that you see outside of Canada and the US, really. Right. And so they have great depth with talent, with size. And then they have this weapon with Dennis Schroeder, who's, we'll see. I would, from a talent standpoint, this is not an elite Serbian team, but how can you not watch them play and not be impressed? Now, they shot the ball incredibly well.
Absolutely.
Against Canada.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will continue. If they shoot that well, they have a great chance to win. But the thing is that they really defend. They defend really well. And one of the things that I'm very impressed with, and you can see it's a product of their practice, when they get a defensive stop, they have terrific systems to play transition offense. They are very organized in their transition offense. And one of the things about it is it's completely egoless. They're not funneling the ball to somebody. Anybody can start a fast break. Anybody can finish a fast break, which makes it very hard to guard. The one thing Serbia has, which is an advantage to them, in Bogdan Bogdanovic, is a wing player who's a dynamic individual scorer. He, when everything else breaks down, You can give him the ball. He can create his own shot and he can score. That is obviously very valuable in every stage of basketball. He is I think Franz Wagner, out of all the players, in the championship game, is probably the most tantalizing talent. But in terms of what you need to win a single game, Bogdan Bogdanovic, he has the ability to create and do so much. So I think it'll be a terrific final. And I think if Serbia shoots the ball well, they'd have a great chance.
Absolutely. And, both teams, of course, gunning for their first World Cup title. And that should really make it more interesting tomorrow. I want to talk a little bit about the NBA. I know you have to go, but I just have a few minutes for a few questions here. After the World Cup, an NBA player who plays in the World Cup, usually comes up with a big season. When you look at the games of the players now in the World Cup, Anthony Edwards, you have Bogdanovic, you have Schroeder, Franz Wagner, and SGA. Who do you think will benefit from their stint here in Manila?
Well, if I was an Orlando Magic fan, I would have been very excited watching this tournament because I know Franz Wagner's missed a lot of time. I think Franz Wagner's going to be an all-star. To find a player 6'10" who can play like that is very rare. Tremendous quick release, moves very well, play inside and outside, versatile defensively. I'm a huge high on his talent. And Paolo Banchero, I was so impressed with over this last month I've been with the team. Now, he's been a guy you could target because the U.S. has decided to play small, and he's been one of these guys that's been victimized a little bit. But he's a way better defender than I gave him credit for. I know that he didn't play a role on this team where he had the ball in his hands, which is the way he plays with the Magic. So you're not gonna. Don't look at his stats and then try to port them over. But boy, he is way better on defense than I thought he was. And I watched him seamlessly move between power forward, center, and small forward sometimes within a single quarter. I liked him, but I've become even more impressed with him. He's getting a little bit, people a little disappointed with him. Looking at him up close, I didn't feel that way at all. And then Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a guy who obviously tremendous scoring talent. He's the best pure scorer in this tournament. If you watched the actual games, he doesn't get the shots maybe he would get with other teams, but his ability to score at all three levels, his ability to generate his own shot, his ability to drive against bigger players and score. He just scores like crazy. If he wanted to, he could easily have 40-point games in FIBA. But the thing about him, Noli, that is so impressive is that he really works hard on defense.
Right.
He really does. He has great length. His arms are very long. He's totally built to be a good defender. And, last night, the U.S. really needed rebounding. Guess who their leading rebounder was? Anthony Edwards. He had 8 rebounds. He's in there fighting to rebound.
Yep.
So, I think Austin Reeves is a better. A lot of NBA executives and agents have been here in Manila the last week to come see this, the medal rounds. And one of the things I said is my big takeaway is Austin Reeves is better than I thought he was. I obviously watched him in this playoff run.
Wow.
I noticed how good he was, but I think he impressed even his teammates. They didn't know how good he was. He's Southern, so he talks with a Southern accent, and he's sort of self-deprecating. He sort of makes fun of himself. Well, I'm just from Arkansas, but Noli, he's a killer.
I know.
He's a killer mindset. He lulls you to sleep. So he's impressed me a lot too.
I cannot let you go without asking, of course, about the LA. You talked about Austin Reeves. The Lakers have made tremendous moves in the offseason, and the latest one, of course, picking up Christian Wood. Does this move the needle for the Lakers? And the other question I want to ask you is, how long are we going to see LeBron? I know you followed LeBron's career for a very long time. How long are we going to see LeBron playing in the NBA?
Well, I thought for sure 2 more years at least, because I thought, this year the Lakers have a chance at the title, and then his son Bronny potentially coming into the NBA. He really wants to play with them, and I thought he would allow that. I don't know what Bronny's future is at this point. It was a stunning thing that happened earlier this summer. They've put out a statement, sounding hopeful about his basketball future, but I don't know where that is. So I don't know how that's going to affect him. But I would say, he's under contract with the Lakers for 2 more years. And I think that that's what the expectation should be. And he made the All-NBA team this last year. Now he's played fewer games and he's going to continue to play fewer games. I don't think he can pencil, there's a new requirement in the NBA starting this season that you have to play in at least 65 games to qualify for any of the awards. Well, I would say that I would guess LeBron probably wouldn't play in 65 games because he hasn't been.
Right.
But he doesn't have to play in 65 in the regular season. He's got to play in all of them in the playoffs. And I think that the Lakers are very deep. I mean, one of the things about this team a year ago is that I thought they had 2.5 players, maybe 3. Now I look at them and I think they've got 8 or 9 really good players. I'm not as excited about the Christian Wood signing. He's 28 years old and has played for 8 teams.
Yeah. Well,
I think that sort of speaks for itself. But Austin Reeves is awesome. He is a terrific piece. Anthony Davis, when he's focused and healthy, still one of the best players in the NBA. And LeBron's an All-NBA player. And they have. I think Darvin Ham's a good coach. They are absolutely going to contend in the Western Conference next year.
I can't let you go. I'm a big Philly fan. I followed the Sixers for so long, and of course, it's been a rough off-season for Philly fans.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about who do you think is more likely to play in their lineups? James Harden with the Sixers or Damian Lillard with the Blazers?
I think it's James Harden because I don't think that there is much of a trade market for James Harden right now, at least a market that Philadelphia is going to like. And I think Damian Lillard will get traded. It's just a matter of the two sides jockeying to quote unquote win the deal. In terms of Harden, I honestly don't think there's a prudent trade that exists right now for the Sixers. I think the teams that have wanted Harden have backed off anyway. They wouldn't have called off trade talks in August if they didn't.
Right.
They did that for a reason.
Yeah.
I think Harden eventually will show up because he's going to realize, as much as he's unhappy, he's going to realize that his best choice is to play for Philly. I'm just going to say this: if you're a Philadelphia fan, I covered the Sixers Celtics series. I was at all those games, those 7 games in that series. Philadelphia was this close.
I know.
This close to winning that series, as you know. I mean, they're up in the fourth quarter in Game 6 on their home floor. And
right.
I mean, I was sitting in the building saying, "Okay, Joel, take him home. And Joel makes 2 or 3 baskets as the MVP, which we've seen him do many times. They're in the conference finals, where they might have won the conference finals, and then they would have gone up against Jokic with the greatest weapon to go up against Jokic with. And when they played, they only played one time. I'm not going to overrate it, but when Embiid and Jokic played one time last year, Embiid destroyed him. So I don't think that there's this big gulf between where the Sixers want to be and where they are. I think that they have gotten derailed because they've faced this problem with Harden, with the contract. But I'm obviously worried about the Sixers, but I don't think that they're an eon away. I think if they get together and get it focused, which I wouldn't wager on, but I can see happening, they could be in the finals this year. I mean, I'm a huge believer in Embiid.
Yeah.
I've been advocating him to win the MVP for 3 years. I voted for him, 2 years ago for the first time. He has let me down. He's let the Sixers down in some key moments, either through health-wise or executing. So that's a factor. He's got to overcome that himself. But Philly's got a lot going for it.
All right. Before I let you go, and this is my final question, Brian, you've seen Philippine basketball. You've seen our fans. And obviously, I want to ask your thoughts about Philippine basketball and why is there still no Filipino local-born that has made the NBA?
I'm not educated enough to answer that, Noli. I don't follow the lower levels, but obviously Kai Soto is a player of great promise, and so I think he's a player everyone's going to be watching. The Philippine. I know it was a rough go, but that win over China. If the Filipinos can take anything away, you can know that you absolutely broke the Chinese heart, which is, I'm sure, very rewarding. Although obviously they got to go face them in the Asian Games here coming up. That was a great step forward. I don't know enough about the young development programs here, but I do know that the love in this country for basketball eventually is going to generate something special.
Wow.
You know, and so I would put it this way: I would bet on Filipino basketball. I would bet on the Filipino fans, and I look forward to coming back to the Philippines in the future, because you can't be someone who's serious about basketball in this world and not appreciate the intensity in this country. And by the way, both arenas in Manila are spectacular. I actually, Mall of Asia Arena is a terrific modern arena, as good as an arena as I've ever seen the World Cup played in. I loved Araneta Coliseum when I went there.
It's
I mean,
historical.
what a tremendous venue. I don't know when they renovated it. I don't know how new it all is, but I mean, awesome venue for basketball. That's the way they used to build NBA arenas back before, they built them for corporate folks. I kind of wish that the final was in there. I love going to Mall of Asia. I love going to the mall, going to the restaurants, hotels around there. I'm not advocating for a change, but I'm so glad that I went up to Araneta Coliseum, because that's a great venue. So great venues for basketball. It would be great to have other events here going forward, and it would be great to have more NBA preseason games or whatever in those venues, because they're great with the fans.
Well, we certainly appreciate all that you've done, all the good words that you've said on your podcast, and that's why you're such a big hero out here. I mean, your fan following, you're more than 900,000 followers on Twitter. I guess maybe a good number Filipino. So you're always welcome to come back, Brian, and we certainly hope that you will. By the way, Homer Saison is one of the beat writers of one of our local organizations here. Says hello. He's a regular in our show, and he says hello to you.
Well, Homer, I've seen Homer for years. He's been coming over to the U.S. I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you to all the Filipino fans who've been so nice to me. I have to go home because I've been on the road too long. Otherwise, I would stay and go to some of the islands. But thank you to the Philippines. Thank you to Manila. Thank you to you, and I look forward to being back someday.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brian Windhorst. Mga kaibigan, Brian Windhorst, certainly one of the best writers in the US, ESPN writer, and of course, host of the Hoop Collective podcast. Isa pong paalala lang, paumanhin lamang kay Ray Hoble at saka kay Coach Eric Reyes. We'll have Fast Take next week. Bago tayo magtapos, gusto ko lang pong i-acknowledge lahat ng mga tagapagtaguyod ng Power and Play. Of course, simula po kay sa Cherry Loom, ang yerong may aluminum. Sa ganitong babago-bago ang panahon, mga kapatid, sobrang init tapos biglang uulan, kailangan natin ng matibay at protektadong bubong. Dapat ang bubong ay yerong may aluminum. Kapag may aluminum, tsak na pang matagalan. At isa lang ang alam kong dekalidad na yerong may aluminum, yan ang Cherry Loom, tibay protektado sa pang matagalang yero. Cherry Loom, ang yerong may aluminum.
Thank you!
Cherry Tiggo 5X Pro Hybrid. Elevate your driving experience with the all-new Cherry Tiggo 5X Pro Hybrid, where sustainability meets functionality. Get ready to embark on a journey of fuel efficiency and power like never before. Imagine cruising down the road with the impressive 1.5 turbocharged engine paired with a cutting-edge 48-volt hybrid system. This dynamic duo not only delivers exhilarating performance, but also slashes fuel consumption effectively, making each mile a step towards a greener planet. The all-new Cherry Tiggo 5X Pro Hybrid is also equipped with a 10.25-inch capacitive touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, full LED headlights, and double-row daytime running lights for improved road visibility, auto trunk release, 6 supplemental restraint system airbags, and a quiet cabin for more peaceful Cherry drives. To learn more about the all-new Cherry Tiggo 5X Pro Hybrid, visit Cherry Auto Philippines website at www.cherryauto.ph or visit your nearest Cherry dealership.
Thank you!
Chooks to go ang nag-iisang manok ng bayan. Subukan ang kanilang pinakabagong oven-roasted chicken na mas pinasarap dahil sa nag-uumapaw na flavorful chicken juice. Subukan ng harissa roast, sweet roast, pepper roast, and of course, try their chooks. First dine-in restaurant ng Chooks to go. Chooks to go, ang nag-iisang manok ng bayan.
Thank you!
True religion is in the Philippines, where passion meets power. Experience it firsthand. For your best style choices, visit True Religion at Conrad S. Maison Mall of Asia Complex, Resorts World Manila, and Hacienda Designer Outlet Silang Cavite. Visit their newest branch at Grand Wing Newport City Resorts World Manila. True Religion, where passion meets power.
Thank you.
Joyride, ang bago ninyong kasundo. Mga kasundo, first booking nyo, use promo code JRMC Taxi, 50% off on your first motorcycle taxi ride. Ano pang hinihintay nyo? Download the JR Super App on Google Play Store and the App Store. Joyride, ang bago ninyong kasundo. Elms Seafood Paluto, the latest offering of the Elms Resto Bar Group, located at Unit 2, Ground Floor, Calle Bistro, Ever Commonwealth, Quezon City. Enjoy their delectable seafood menu in a relaxed, casual dining atmosphere for your salo-salo seafood meal. Elms Seafood Paluto, Skin, your face and body anti-aging center with branches at Alabang Town Center in Green Hills, San Juan. For your skin assessment and treatment schedule, call 0917-890-1640 or 0977-809-8886.
Thank you.
ASEA Subic Beach Resort. Experience the getaway that you deserve and dive into limitless happenings, rejuvenating experiences, and gastronomic adventures. ASEA Subic Beach Resort.
Thank you.
M2T Drink. Drink your gulay and fuel up on energy with M2T Drink with malunggay, okra, and luya. Your natural source of electrolytes.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to Smart. We are powered by Smart. Live more today.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po ha. At ngayon po gusto ko lang pong i-announce lahat ng mga nanalo sa atin sa Joyride Super App Top Up promo. Ang mga nanalo ng 1,000 pesos e-wallet credits, si Hervasio Kaalam, Adonis Vega, Jefferson Baliton, Dolores Montibon at si Nina Angela Alano. Congratulations, 1,000 pesos e-wallet credits. Yung nanalo ng Joyride Limited Edition Aqua Flask last week, ito po si Carmi P. Rivera. Yan po yung picture niya. Aba, umuulan pa ha? Again, next week po i-announce natin yung ating winners ng Joyride Aqua Flask. Doon naman po sa ating mga nagpadala ng kanilang komentaryo sa Pulso ng Bayan. Medyo naubusan tayo ng oras. We are reading all your messages. Ating pong i-announce yan next week. Abangan nyo din po sa ating Facebook page. Wow. What a day, what a day. And bukas po, finals ng World Cup. Manood po tayo and of course, supportahan po natin lahat ng atletang Pilipino. Again, tuwing Sabado, sinasabi po natin, bawal ang masungit. At sa lahat po ng ating gawain, ad maiorem Dei gloriam, all for the greater glory of God. Kami po ang 1PH, teleserbisyo para sa Pilipino. Susunod na po ang inay ko po. Happy Sports Weekend mga kapatid! More power, more play.
Sa kapwa ko Pilipino, ipagmalaki ang galing na meron tayo. Ilantad ang likas nating talento at magdala ng saya sa mundo. Sa harap ng pagsubok ay di susuko. Para sa pangarap tayo'y porsigido. Magpakitang gilas na at magpapatalo. Ipagdiwang natin ang Pilipino. Yan ang Pinoy. Mula noon at hanggang ngayon, talento natin ang bida. Mula sa simpleng bakuran hanggang entablado natin ipakita. May pagsubok man ng Pinoy, pinalalakas ng saya. San man tayo sa pulot, sumbe, sibay, lakay, maniga. Sama-samang pakita, ang galing natin katropa. Sa kapwa ko Pilipino. Pilipino. Yan ang Pinoy.
Sa 1PH, kung mainit ang kape, mas mainit ang balita.
Narito na